Chapter 16. Verdict. Without a word, we followed Jane into the elevator. Confident in her ability to disable any of us, she didn't bother to look my way. Behind her disinterested facade, she remained vigilant, prepared to loose her talent on any of us should she feel threatened. I didn't let her out of my sight. Bella, on the other hand, seemed to shrink into the corner of the car. I continued to rub her arm, more out of reflex than effect. She had good reason to fear. It was her trembling, her pounding heart that kept me in control. Barely. I had to get her out of this horrific place. But how?
Edward, you have to let go of the idea of attacking them. There's no success in that strategy.
The same visions repeated in Alice's mind yet again. No matter who I targeted, I ended up in pieces, sometimes smoking. The only variation was whether Alice managed to escape or not. In every instance, every single permutation, Bella ended up dead.
Until you consider a different course, the future can't change. You know that,
Alice admonished. Yes, I knew that, and I tried again. If I could convince Aro. Bella's smile flashed through Alice's view of the future, but disappeared when Felix took a deep breath. Such an inviting scent. No wonder he couldn't keep his mouth off her in the tunnel. Only the sight of Bella's dead body in Alice's mind kept me from giving in to my violent instincts and removing Felix's head from his shoulders.
Edward.
Alice sighed imperceptibly. Finally, the doors opened to the lobby. Bella's sigh was only fractionally louder when we stepped out of the confined space and into the reception area. Her eyes roamed the room, taking in the lavish interior. She sampled the pervasive scent of the flowers, her nostrils twitching at the intense smell. It was the sight of the receptionist that caused Bella's jaw to fall open. She'd realized the girl was human. I shouldn't have been surprised. She wouldn't have missed something that obvious. But in the midst of the hatred, the anger, and the fear coursing through me, she instilled awe and pride. I wonder if she felt any connection to the human behind the desk, the human who longed to be a vampire, just like she did.
Edward, things are changing,
thought Alice. You would have to mean it, said Aro in the future, but then the image vanished. The inside of a plane appeared in Alice's mind, not a vision, but a memory. Bella chewed her lip.
If you don't do it now, you'll change your mind. No, I don't think I will,
Alice replied. Then the picture of Bella that I had seen many times manifested itself. My love, with white skin and red eyes, arm in arm with my sister. Was it a memory or a prediction? I couldn't tell. The image dissolved in a swirl of purple smoke as Dmitri swallowed a mouthful of venom. Mean what? Do what? I crushed my teeth together in frustration.
Good afternoon, Jane,
Gianna said politely but confidently. She was under the false assumption that by treating her vampire masters as equals, they would see her as such. Felix gave the human more than a glance, eliciting a not-so-self-conscious giggle from her. He considered her a bottle of wine, aging just for him. His plans for her included more than just quenching his thirst, though, and my jaw tightened at his lewd thoughts. But it was the thirst that distracted him as he glanced at Gianna's watch. He noted the even pulse behind the timepiece. It's almost time, he thought, licking his lips. I tried to ignore Felix's disgusting imagination as we passed through the first set of doors. Alice waited in the hallway beyond. Jane, he crooned, before embracing his twin.
Alec.
For the first time, Jane showed some emotion other than disdain, showering her brother with kisses. They send you out for one, and you come back with 2.5, he said, returning the affection. Bella didn't react to his stare, though through his eyes she seemed fascinated. Nice work. Jane laughed, generally amused by her twin. Were she not a vicious sadist, and he not deceptively controlling, the scene would have been almost heartwarming. "Welcome back, Edward," Alex said, turning to me. "You seem in a better mood." He pictured change in my features, lifeless and morose only a few hours ago, compared to angry and determined now. "Marginally," I said. Alec chuckled. "And this is the cause of all the trouble? One measly human girl?" Measly, if he only knew. A smile curled my lips. He had no idea the power Bella wielded when it came to attracting trouble. My grin turned to ice as Felix's fantasies about Gianna shifted and Bella became the girl in his arms. "Dibs," he said. "So soft and warm." His imaginary hands wandered over Bella's body as he leaned into her. Words failed me as I turned, my rage coming out as an incoherent growl. Felix crooked a finger at me. "She'll wait while I finish you." Alice's touch stopped me from reacting.
"There's a way out. It's becoming clearer."
She added her voice.
"Patience, please."
I looked down at my favorite sister, but didn't see her eyes. Instead, I watched the show in her mind. Among the screams and the smoke were new images. Aro touching Bella's hand, me accepting a guard's cloak from Aro, Bella crying in my arms, Alice greeting Jasper, and a hazy shot of our dining room. The new possibilities were fleeting and mixed in with many more gruesome outcomes, most of which involved Bella's death.
"I don't know what it all means," she admitted, "but there are many more outcomes, if you keep from going after Felix."
She lifted an ebony eyebrow, questioning me. I inhaled, filling my lungs with Bella's scent. The fire in my throat only reminded me that its absence was much more painful. I blinked slowly, giving her a silent promise to restrain myself. No matter what outcome, Ara would be the key. I faced Alec, who had been waiting patiently with Jane while Felix had his fun. "Ara will be so pleased to see you again," he said. Eagerly Jane caught his hand.
"Let's not keep him waiting."
I bobbed my head. I was ready to get this over with. Alec and Jane skipped down the ornate hall ahead of us, but stopped at a hidden door halfway down the hall. No, not this room. I hadn't been paying enough attention to Aro's mind. I hadn't realized he waited for us in this repulsive place. I glanced at Alice, but her face was wooden. Only the slightest hint of blood wafted from under the rough-hewn door. The Volturi were very thorough when they ate. Nary a drop was wasted. There could only be one reason Ara wanted to meet us here. As if she knew what happened in this room, Bella resisted my pull as I guided her through the door. Her shoulders hunched. She seemed to try to make herself smaller as we made our way through the antechamber into the round room that served as the Volturi dining hall. This room was bare, except for a few chairs. Bella looked around the room nervously, then up to the windows, presenting another option for me to consider. The openings were narrow, but we could fit through. Outside, the jump would be considerable, and I'd have to absorb the energy to protect Bella's fragile body. There was surely a crowd below and the sun above, but was exposure such a bad thing at this point?
"Where would you go, Edward? They'll hunt you and Bella down,"
Alice thought, seeing my plan.
They'll start by finding Carlyle.
So much for that idea. Bella's gaze drifted to the floor, and the V between her eyebrows deepened. The grate did resemble the one we had used to enter the sewer system, but this one didn't provide an escape, not for the living at least. The furnace at the bottom wasn't used for heat, but for destroying evidence. Like a piano being tuned, the buzz of the minds around us converged into a single chorus as we entered. Aro provided the only dissonant contemplation, smugly regarding Alice and Bella. So she's not dead. Jane, dear one, you've returned, he chimed, ignoring us for the moment. As he took Jane's face in his hands, I glanced at Bella. Frozen to the spot, her face was filled with a morbid fascination. Her pupils followed Aro's every move, but her expression didn't change. I could almost hear the wheels turning, as she tried to equate Aro's odd skin and eyes with the other vampires. Jane glowed as his lips touched hers, believing she was his perfect daughter, not his favorite hound.
Yes, master, I brought him back alive, just as you wished, she gushed.
Make that retriever. Ah, Jane, you are such a comfort to me. He didn't offer any praise or even acknowledge the presence of the others, but turned his attention to us. His unbridled pleasure at seeing the three of us turned my stomach.
And Alice and Bella, too. This is a happy surprise. Wonderful.
Color bloomed in Bella's cheeks at his casual recognition. Aro ignored it, requiring a larger audience for his upcoming spectacle. Felix, be a dear and tell my brothers about our company. I'm sure they won't want to miss this. With a subservient, yes, master, Felix exited, and I considered our options for escape again. One less combatant didn't change the result, though. Aro turned to me. You see, Edward, what did I tell you? Aren't you glad I didn't give you what you wanted yesterday? As much as I hated the circumstances, I couldn't deny that his decision had given me this fleeting moment with Bella. Yes, Aro, I am. I love a happy ending. They are so rare, Aro said with a dreamy look on his face. I barely avoided voicing my biting thoughts. Then give me one. But I want the whole story. How did this happen? Alice? He addressed her like he had known her for decades. Your brother seemed to think you infallible, but apparently there were some mistakes.
I doubt that,
Alice thought, knowing I had thwarted her visions in the past.
Oh, I'm far from infallible.
A flicker of something crossed her mind, another incarnation of the future, and I caught the sight of a black robe. Beneath the hood was a pair of red eyes, surrounded by short black hair. No way, she thought, her hands curling in on each other. The image blinked off like a burnt-out light bulb.
As you can see today, I cause problems as often as I cure them. If only I could find our way out.
You're too modest, Aro chided. I've seen some of your more amazing exploits, and I must admit, I've never observed anything like your talent. Wonderful.
Edward, what did you tell him?
She shot me a glare. Aro answered her obvious confusion. I'm sorry. We haven't been introduced properly at all, have we? It's just that I feel like I know you already, and I tend to get ahead of myself. Your brother introduced us yesterday, in a peculiar way. You see, I share some of your brother's talent, only I'm limited in a way that he is not. He briefly considered the advantages of our combined power. Alice's brow creased minutely, her question still unanswered. And also exponentially more powerful, I explained. Aro needs physical contact to hear your thoughts, but he hears much more than I do. You know I can only hear what is passing through your head in the moment. Aro hears every thought your mind has ever had." Her eyebrows rose visibly this time.
"Every thought? Even human ones? More than you can remember?"
I tilted my head in assent. Aro missed none of our silent conversation, and deduced Alice's quiet curiosity. His excitement rose, his thoughts swirling with possibilities. Alice and Edward. He suddenly stifled the speculation. But to be able to hear from a distance, that would be so convenient, and tactically superior. Regretting his slip, Aro hastily looked at the group arriving behind us. "Marcus, Caius, look!" Aro exclaimed in a whisper. "Bella is alive after all, and Alice is here with her. Isn't that wonderful?" Caius couldn't see why we excited Aro so much, and planned to wait out the theatrics. He passed us, his lip curling up with scorn. Marcus, however, took one look at us, and withdrew deeper within himself. The faint crimson he had seen on me before had expanded into a wide, fiery ribbon that bound me to Bella and Alice, similar to the one connecting Jane and Alec, but much brighter. Whatever bond they shared, we shared, only to a much higher degree. But it was the darker, blood-red bubble that fused me to Bella that he dwelled on. He had only seen such an intense, rich color once before, and in his mind's eye it encircled a girl's pale image. Her eyes were filled with love as she stared back at him, her ebony hair framing her smiling face. I recognized her at once. Her high cheekbones and strong chin matched Aro's exactly. "Didmé," he thought, overwhelmed with grief. The Greek term for twin confused me. She seemed too young to be Aro's womb mate. The meaning of her name was insignificant compared to the way Marcus revered her. The red halo around her deepened another shade as he remembered her kiss, her touch, and the joy she exuded like perfume. The red bond he saw, it had to be love. He hadn't seen one as strong as the one he felt for his mate ever before, and never thought he would see it again. Now he saw it tying me to Bella, and her to me. Shrouding himself in anguish, he longed for the woman he had lost centuries ago. Marcus glided to Aro and held out his hand. Aro paged through Marcus's thoughts, skipping quickly to the most recent. He too saw the glow, and it was even stronger than what Aro had for his mate. I couldn't help but snort. Clearly no one loved Aro more than Aro.
"What is he seeing? It's not affecting the future,"
Alice thought impatiently. "Thank you, Marcus. That's quite interesting. Such a strong bond. I wonder if it can be broken by anything other than death." His thoughts drifted to one of the women next to Caius, Chelsea. I hadn't noticed her the last time I was here. Her eyes darted around the room, but she couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. She felt a chill from Marcus and turned to him, playing a song in her mind. The haunting melody caught my attention. It was beautiful. As she hummed to herself, Marcus tilted his head towards Aro. Looking through Marcus's eyes again, I saw the blue thread of light connecting him to Aro brighten. Didmé faded from his thoughts, only to be replaced by Aro. I have to live for my brother, he thought. She did that. The blue bonds were artificially enhanced, manipulated, by Chelsea. I held Bella close, her hand pressed against my bare waist in response. Her breathing drowned out the music in Chelsea's mind. No, I wouldn't let her tear me from my love. Aro shook his head, still pondering the depth of my love for Bella. Amazing, he said. Absolutely amazing.
word?"
Alice screamed in her thoughts. In other circumstances, I would have found her frustration funny. Her scowl actually resembled Emmett's. "Marcus sees relationships. He's surprised by the intensity of ours," I explained. Bella stared at Marcus, squinting her eyes, trying to see his invisible astonishment, I guess. Alice frowned.
"He sees all three of us, right? I love her too."
I looked up, then down, assuring her that her love was strongly represented, and the frustration vanished from her eyes. "So convenient," Aro muttered, staring at me. "Such talent, and so young. In another century his talent would grow." Before I could react, his thoughts were gone, like he'd erased a blackboard. Aro's eyes drifted to Bella's arm around me. "It takes quite a bit to surprise Marcus, I assure you. It's just so difficult to understand, even now. To bond to her, a human, your siren. Does not hearing her thoughts make it easier or harder for you? How can you stand so close to her like that?" He and many of those around us wondered at the intensity of my thirst. They had no idea. It's not without effort. It wasn't thirst that drove me any longer. The effort was required to restrain myself from pulling her even closer. I wanted to wrap both of my arms around her and hold her to my chest, feel her heart beat against me, taste her skin, her lips, show her how much I loved her, and beg her forgiveness. Thirst had nothing to do with my desire any longer. But still, le tue cantante. What a waste! Several vampires around us had encountered their singers, and they sighed quietly, reliving the euphoria of imbibing such perfection. Aro recalled my memory of tasting Bella's blood and the bliss it had brought me. But though my throat roasted, the recollection lacked the temptation it once had. I look at it more as a price. Every poet would agree the greatest love should come with the highest price. I prayed that I had paid enough. Ara was amused by my response. "If I hadn't smelt her through your memories, I wouldn't have believed the call of anyone's blood could be so strong." He sorted through other memories that he had acquired over the centuries, but no one had experienced as tantalizing a scent as Bella's was to me. "I've never felt anything like it myself. Most of us would trade much for such a gift. And you... "Wasted," I finished. They only saw Bella as a vessel. The creatures around me pretended to be civilized, but couldn't see how beautiful she was, couldn't take the time to learn how amazing she was. Carlyle was right. I had risen above.
"Animals,"
Alice thought, reminding me that love for Bella had overcome her thirst as well. I regretted ever having doubted her. If we found a way out of Voltura, I would have to make it up to her, for all I had put my dearest sister through. I opened my mind and began to catalogue all those in the room, noting their strengths and functions within the Volturi hierarchy. Our best hope was to convince Aro that he had no reason to kill us. I kept my eyes locked on him. "Ah, how I miss my friend Carlyle. You remind me of him, only he was not so angry." A high compliment. Carlyle outshines me in many other ways as well. I certainly never thought I would see Carlyle bested for self-control of all things, but you put him to shame. How little he knew my father, never having taken a human life, spending his life bathed in human blood, but never having feasted. Carlyle would be appalled by this room, their cafeteria, reeking with the traces of their previous meal. I ached to get Bella out of this place, away from the danger. "Hardly," I retorted. Her pulse raced at the sound of my harsh answer, sensing my discomfort. I am gratified by his success, Aro continued to muse about Carlyle's way of life and my control, mostly to himself, boring most of those in the room. Finally, he came to the point with a low laugh. Just remembering how she appeals to you, it makes me thirsty. I tightened my grip on Bella, and as I did, the vampire behind Aro crept closer to him, preparing to misdirect me should I attack her master. The windows above were in reach of my jump. If I could get Bella there, maybe we'd have a chance.
It's a possibility,
Alice thought, seeing us all make it to the windows. But then she saw us running, with Dmitri right on our heels. Don't be disturbed, Aro said, raising one hand in reconciliation. I meant her no harm, but I am so curious about one thing in particular. She blocks you, Edward. Does she block others too? His hungry eyes devoured Bella. May I? Ask her. His disregard for Bella's sentience appalled me. Bella's breathing hitched. Of course, how rude of me. Bella, I'm fascinated that you're the one exception to Edward's impressive talent. So very interesting that such a thing should occur. Ah, if only Eleazar were here. And I was wondering, since our talents are similar in many ways, if you would be so kind as to allow me to try, to see if you are an exception for me as well. Bella's fear swept through me like a cold wind as her eyes met mine. We had no choice. She would have to let Aro attempt to read her, if we were to live through the next minutes. Part of me hoped he could read her. Then I could finally get to hear her thoughts, unedited. Did she hate me for leaving? Had she found another? Would she want me to stay if I saw her home safely? What did she feel when I touched her? There were so many things I could see. Alice provided the answer, showing me Aro's imminent surprise and disappointment. So very interesting, he said in her vision, clearly stymied by Bella too. Her secrets would remain her own. I nodded to Bella, and she raised a trembling hand towards the ancient vampire. As he stared down at her, adrenaline flooded her bloodstream. Aro terrified her, freezing her in place like a cobra that was hypnotizing its prey. He waited for the parade of memories, but heard nothing. Just as I had tried so long ago, he attempted to force himself into her head. He found nothing but the same frustration and silence. The future became the present. So very interesting, he said. As much as I wanted to see inside Bella's head, I couldn't help the warm pride that filled me. The fact that she could block Aro was stunning, and she was just a measly human, as far as he was concerned. Bella straightened a tiny bit when Aro backed away, and glanced up at me, looking for assurance. Her shoulders relaxed a minuscule amount.
I told you she was stronger than you thought,
Alice said, smothering a smile. The future was a flickering mass of images, all hinging on Aro. Aro silently considered Bella, seeing in her a potential that was hard to resist. If she can block both Edward and me as a human, how powerful could she be as an immortal? And to be tied so tightly to these two, also so unique. Carlyle has built quite a coven. Clearly I saw a trio of dark-robed vampires, with Aro in the center. The two on either side weren't Marcus or Caius, though. He erased it before revealing their faces. His offer to me returned, and he glanced at me before moving on to other subjects. "A first," he murmured. Then his volatile thoughts took a new path. "Who else can she block? I wonder if she is immune to our other talents. Jane, dear?" The hatred burst out of me in a single word. No! Bella would not be submitted to the torture that Jane could provide. It would kill her. There was a pull on my arm, but I freed myself easily.
Edward, look!
I ignored Alice's thoughts. No matter what she thought the future held, I couldn't let Bella endure any agony due to my negligence.
Yes, master?
Jane said playfully.
Which will scream louder, the girl or you, Edward?
Felix shifted, ready to try and separate me from my love, but Aro stopped him with a look.
Edward, it'll be all right.
Alice tried again. Aro was irritatingly calm. I was wondering, my dear one, if Bella is immune to you, he said calmly. I pushed Bella behind me, hiding her from Jane's view. If I could get Bella onto my back fast enough, I could jump.
It won't work,
Alice thought. Felix was too close. He would grab my foot as I jumped, resulting in Bella crashing to the stone floor. I refused to watch the resulting melee in her vision, searching through the mines around me for a chink, a crack, that I could take Bella through and escape. There were no holes, and the frustration of being cornered sent me into a frenzy. The vampires around us remained silent, waiting for Aro's signal to pounce. It would have to be a visual command. Nothing could be heard above my snarls. Another plan took shape in the last second. If I created enough of a diversion, Alice could take Bella away. There would be no future for me, but she would live and be protected. Today would be the day I died, but I would perish whole, healed, knowing that Bella lived and that she still loved me. Alice's vision twisted in a murky fog as Jane tried to catch Bella in her gaze. Instinctively, I leapt at Jane, blocking her view of my love completely. If only I could take her with me, but I wasn't fast enough. The fog in Alice's vision cleared in that last instant, but I didn't see the future materialize.
Don't!
Was the last thing I heard before I hit the floor. In less than 1/10 of a second, I was engulfed in flames, every cell screaming out in pain. I was burning from the inside out, my skin boiling away, and my internal organs fried. A scream fought its way out of my throat, but a soft lub-dub silenced it. The gentle rhythm echoed over everything, drowning out the sizzling of my flesh. Every muscle in my body seized. I had control of none of them, and yet I managed to keep my lips locked together, muzzling any sound I might make that could blemish the beat that kept me alive. Bella, I love you.
Stop!
Bella screamed, and the flames rose higher. My lips separated, baring my teeth. No, I wouldn't answer her cry. With my last ounce of strength, I would spare Bella from hearing my weakness. Jane, said a soft voice. Just as fast as they had flared, the flames waned. The absence of pain was as much a shock as the application of it, and it took a few milliseconds to orient myself. Bella, no!
He's fine,
I heard as I stood and stared at Bella, struggling in Alice's arms. In Jane's mind, I saw the flames rise around the image of my love, and Bella twisted harder against my sister. No, not her. Watching her, I realized Bella wasn't in physical pain, but suffered just the same. Only when our eyes met did she calm. Jane turned the fire around my love even higher. I turned to the angelic devil, prepared to spring at her again, but Jane's expression stopped me. Her smile had vanished, replaced by a frustrated grimace.
She will scream for me,
the sadistic cherub thought. Bella, too, saw Jane's failure and stopped struggling, melting into Alice in fear. She was safe.
She's immune. If you had just waited another second.
Alice thought, as I collected Bella in my arms again. Aro's laugh couldn't drown out the hated growl rumbling through Jane's thoughts. She dropped into a crouch, intent on causing Bella pain one way or another. Aro captured her shoulder before I had a chance to match her stance. "Don't be put out, dear one. She confounds us all. And she's only human." He chuckled again, picturing how I writhed on the ground. "You're very brave, Edward, to endure in silence. I asked Jane to do that once to me, just out of curiosity." His head wagged back and forth as he remembered the scream he had made before his bodyguard stepped in. The whole experience had lasted about 3 seconds. I swallowed my snort. "So what to do with you now?" Aro asked, his testing complete. I didn't need to see the future go blank to know this was it. Bella quivered beside me, and not from the cold. "I don't suppose there's any chance you've changed your mind." "You'd hold a place of honor," he thought, picturing me in a robe as dark as Jane's. Chelsea's humming returned, sweetening Aro's offer even further. I didn't have to look through Marcus's eyes to know that a blue thread of light was reaching out from Aro toward me. The temptation was strong, but Bella's fear was stronger. "You'd have access to a millennia of history." "No, I would share Bella's fate. Including works of art, literature, music?" Her pulse raced. "Rather, Bella could stay with you." The thought of Bella surrounded by these creatures sealed my decision. "Not." Aro didn't hesitate, turning his gaze on my sister. "Alice?" He also pictured her wearing the darkest gray, knowing she would see the result of his decision to elevate her to the highest level of the guard. "Would you perhaps be interested in joining with us?" She didn't give Chelsea a chance, seeing only Jasper in her mind.
"No, thank you,"
she said with deceptive politeness. But Aro wasn't finished. "And you, Bella?" Shock rolled through the room like an earthquake. A human had never been offered a position in the guard, let alone given a chance to say no. My disgust leaked out as a hiss in Bella's ear. Aro's offer was far from free. Bella's eyes grew wide and her lips parted. Surely she couldn't be considering. "What?" Caius snapped. Aro answered as if he were teaching a class. "Caius, surely you can see the potential. I haven't seen a prospective talent so promising since we found Jane and Alec." Both of the twins bristled at the comparison. "Can you imagine the possibilities when she's one of us?" "No." Bella didn't move, but she couldn't miss that Aro was offering her the one thing she had always wanted. That was before I left her, before I had broken her. Maybe she wasn't interested in spending an excessive amount of time with vampires any longer. But was it my company she wanted, or had it been the immortality? I had not only broken her, but delivered her to the seat of evil. Aro saw Bella dressed in black, taking his regular guard's place by his side. Rage bubbled up in my chest and crept out of my lips with a low rumble. "No, thank you," Bella croaked, her arms tense around my waist. "That's unfortunate. Such a waste." My growl morphed into another hiss as I played my last card. Niceties were no longer necessary. "Join or die, is that it? I suspected as much when you brought us into this room. So much for your laws." Caius glanced behind me at Felix. "His insolence must be punished." "What?" Taken aback, Aro gathered himself in an instant. "Of course not. We were already convened here, Edward, awaiting Heidi's return. Not for you." His surprise was genuine, but he had considered the convenience of facing us here. "Aro, the law claims them." Caius was irate with Aro's casual manner and my disrespect. I looked him squarely in the eye. "How so?" He'd have to defend his double standard before killing us. His finger rose toward Bella, and her trembling increased. "She knows too much. You have exposed our secrets. How dare you question me, child?" I plan to do a lot more than question the Volturi's authority. "There are a few humans in on your charade here as well," I accused. The argument was thin, but it was all I had left. Alice remained quiet, waiting for the future to clear. All she could see was me, staring down at Bella. Was I the deciding factor? "And so we reach the end," Caius thought, a grin stretching his ancient lips. "Yes, but when they are no longer useful to us, they will serve to sustain us. I know your intentions for her. That is not your plan with this one. If she betrays our secrets, are you prepared to destroy her? I think not. Aro may think you strong, but I know the truth." Bella's voice wasn't any louder than his. "I wouldn't," she started, but her voice vanished under Caius's glare before he continued. "Nor do you intend to make her one of us. Therefore she is a vulnerability." His contempt sprouted into satisfaction. "Though it is true, for this, only her life is forfeit. You may leave if you wish, but we know how likely that is, don't we?" There were no words to express my anger, or my helplessness. "That's what I thought," he said, happy to see he had found the perfect punishment for me. Felix shifted behind us. A mysterious view of the interior of an airplane flashed through Alice's mind as Aro spoke. "Unless such conflict is not productive," he sighed. "The answer is simple. Edward? Unless you do intend to give her immortality." I searched Aro's thoughts, looking for the deception. "And if I do?" "Why, then you would be free to go home, and give my regards to my friend Carlyle. She will make a wonderful immortal." The thought darkened as the future became crystal clear. "But I'm afraid you would have to mean it." His hands rose in invitation. "There can be no deception on your part, my young friend." "Her future is in your hands," Caius added with a sneer. Two familiar images strode through Alice's vision. I had to take Bella's life, or her soul. There were no other options. "Won't you give her what she wants, Edward?" Aro prodded. Ironic that I had always considered Fate a woman, but she had taken the form in his translucent skin. For the first time since Bella fell into my arms as an angel, I faced her properly and gazed into her eyes. That moment in the plaza, I had had the audacity to think I could be with her forever in her paradise. And yet here I was, faced again, with the choice of two evils. One choice would turn her chocolate eyes into a permanent ebony, her pupils fixed and dilated in death. The other would make her irises alternate between inhuman red and monstrous black, ever changing, driven by only one thing, bloodlust. In either case, the warm, brown eyes of Bella would be gone forever.
"Mean it,"
she whispered. Bella searched my expression, looking for the answer I wanted more than anything to give her. Sorrow, weakness, selfishness, whatever she saw disturbed her. Or was it regret that shadowed her expression? In her selfless quest to save my life, she had lost hers. Was immortality still her goal, or was it just to escape?
Please,
she pleaded. Please, as if she had to beg. The answer should be obvious. I wanted nothing more than an eternity with Bella, but I remained silent, trapped in the paradox. Every second of my indecision brought her closer to death, but still, I struggled with condemning her to my existence. Was death really worse than denying her a true paradise with those she loved? How could I commit such an atrocity for my own desires? And after suffering through the transition, and waking to see me for who I really was, stripped of my predator's camouflage, how could Bella possibly stay with me? She'd hate me forever, which was what Ara was counting on, no doubt. But could I let her die? Not here, not now, not ever, my heart added. Could I mean it? Decisions can change.
If you don't commit to your promise, he won't believe you.
Alice's thoughts screamed, seeing the shake of Aro's head when he touched my hand. A split second later, Felix grabbed Bella, snapping her neck as he pulled her head back to get at her throat. She didn't even have time to make a sound.
What if?
Alice thought, and the nightmare disappeared, replaced by a memory. I finally understood why she kept returning to the airplane flight.
I'm debating whether to just change you myself,
she had said, and been rewarded with a brief snapshot of her reunion with Jasper. At the time, the two events seemed unrelated, but now she understood.
I'll change her. He'll believe me.
Suddenly a new future unfolded, with a strength and clarity that she hadn't seen since I had decided to come to Italy. In the Tuscan twilight, the three of us sped away from Volterra in a dark sedan. She searched ahead and saw a plane landing at SeaTac and our family waiting in the airport. She had made the decision I couldn't, but could she sell Aro on her sincerity? Certainly there's no problem, Aro said with a smile in her vision. Apparently she could. Hope ignited in my chest as I refused to think about what her decision meant for Bella. Escaping the Volturre was all that mattered. I'd deal with the consequences when we were far away from here. Alice stepped forward, fueled by hopes of seeing some of her human life. She lifted her hand. I wonder if she would see. I assumed that when I viewed my past, it was through Aro's mind, not my own. Aro lit up like a supernova when Alice approached. He intended to find some reason to read her, but seeing her willingly offer her thoughts had him giddy as a child on Christmas morning. I shared Jane's abhorrence at the sight, although mine was stemmed from disgust, while hers was rooted in jealousy. As soon as their palms met, Alice became a living statue as she threw herself into Bella's future. The past waited while Aro watched what could unfold. She mentally repeated her choice.
I will change her,
she thought, and the result of her determination washed over her.
Are you ready, Bella?
Alice asked.
Yes,
she said with a shaking nod. Bella lay on a bed adorned with wrought iron roses and pushed her hair to the side. Alice smiled tightly, then lifted Bella's wrist to her lips.
My sister, my sister, my sister,
she thought, fighting her growing bloodlust.
I can do this, for my sister.
My teeth crashed together as I fought back a hatred I never thought I experienced toward Alice. I'll kill her before I let her near her. As if a stone had been thrown into a lake, the future shimmered, and I materialized by Alice's side. No, if it's going to be anyone, it's going to be me. I pushed Alice aside, grim determination painted on my face. as I leaned down and kissed Bella on the throat before baring my teeth. "Will you ever forgive me?" my future self thought before mauling her throat. Other scenes blinked as Alice freed herself from the premonition. A human Bella apologizing to Jasper. An equally mortal Bella graduating from high school. Then the change. Bella's writhing, shrieking from... And then finally, the woman I loved, crouching in a pale blue dress and stilettos, red eyes looking up at me in fear. Alice took a breath, and the vision ceased. She waited, but saw nothing more as Aro opened himself to the rest of her thoughts and memories. Her human life was all but erased. I only saw one face, a woman with long black hair, striking blue eyes, probably her mother. I committed this image to memory. Hopefully I could reproduce it for her later. The rest of her life was dark. Only screams and sobs penetrated the unending night. What followed was mostly a repeat for me. Over the years, I had seen most of Alice's memories, and her exploits as a clairvoyant. Aro was entranced, as he saw her visions appear and then come to pass. I saw Bella jump off the cliff again, and watched the black water swallow her. In the midst of the memories, he saw a vision of his own. 3 cloaked figures, hand in hand. He the past, me the present, and Alice the future. True omnipresence. Perhaps some day, he thought. Never. The word fought to leave my lips. I watched Bella crash into Alice's arms, saw her clutch herself at the memory of me, with tears streaming down her face. Could she ever forgive me? The memories continued. Charlie's face appeared, devoid of anything resembling forgiveness. His word flew by at high speed, but I caught his insinuation loud and clear. Jacob Black and Bella. No, damn it. Anyone but him. The reason I had left was to give Bella a normal life, to protect her, not to push her into the arms of a destructive mongrel. They say the path to hell is paved with good intentions. I just upgraded it to a superhighway. Bella's breathing became more erratic the longer Aro stood frozen over Alice's touch. He had found Alice's encounter with Black, and as he watched the boy fight to stay human, he compared what he saw to the creatures he had encountered before. These aren't children of the moon, he surmised, but I didn't care. Whatever they were, I vowed that Bella wouldn't have anything more to do with them, assuming we didn't die here. Slowly, Aro lifted his face, his reading of Alice completed, while I fumed over the wolves. That was fascinating.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Alice smiled, but wasn't happy. She hadn't seen any of her own memories as Aro had extracted them. Aro continued to compliment Alice, who fed his assertion that her view of the future had to be correct regarding Bella. He nearly giggled when he unintentionally repeated the words he had seen himself say in her mind. Caius, however, wasn't convinced, and felt even more threatened by us. "Aro," he warned, "we can't let them go." "Dear Caius, do not fret. Think of the possibilities. They do not join us today, but we can always hope for the future. Imagine the joy Alice alone could bring to our little household." Jane grimaced again. "Besides, I'm so terribly curious to see how Bella turns out. Such a quiet mind can only mean—" But Aro glanced at me and quelched the idea. "I do love happy endings, don't you?" he thought instead. "Then we are free to go now?" I asked. A murmuring of thoughts grew louder. Someone was coming, a large group. "Yes, yes, but please visit again. It's been absolutely enthralling." He sounded like a doddering grandfather. All that was missing was the "don't forget to write." "And we will visit you as well," Caius threatened, "to be sure that you follow through on your side. Were I you, I would not delay too long. We do not offer second chances. This is not the end, whelp." With freedom so close, I clamped my mouth shut, responding with a quick nod. "Maybe you do have some control," Caius smirked, then dismissed me as he went to sit by the unresponsive Marcus and wait for his meal to be delivered. I wasn't the only one to hear the conversation of the group that had converged around Gianna's desk. The vampires around us shifted. Felix let out an impatient grumble. "Ah, Felix, Heidi will be here any moment," Aro said. "Patience." He listened carefully, detecting the hum of human hearts. Lunch had arrived. We needed to go now. Alice echoed my anxiousness.
"Edward, we have to get out of here,"
she warned, seeing the coming bloodbath. In that case, we'd better leave sooner rather than later," I said. "Yes, that's a good idea. Accidents do happen. Please wait below until after dark, though, if you don't mind." He glanced at Bella. "I'd hate for you to lose her again," he thought. It was the loss of her potential talent he worried about, not her safety. Of course. We just had to get out of this room. "And here," he said, waving a finger at Felix. "Take this. You're a little conspicuous." He unclasped the guard's cloak and tossed it to me. "It suits you," Aro sighed.
"If you're a Benedictine monk," Alice added. "Even you aren't that conservative."
I laughed, more at her comment than his, but stopped abruptly when the doors to the antechamber opened. My head automatically turned toward the sound for a moment. Time to go. "Thank you, Aro. We'll wait below." "Goodbye, young friends." Aro and everyone else in the room turned his attention to the arriving crowd. "Let's go," I said, pulling Bella behind Dimitri.
"Not fast enough,"
Alice warned, seeing us getting locked in with the feasting vampires. Instead of watching the outcome, I sped up. We made it into the small entry before getting stopped by the unknowing victims. They filed past, unaware that their tour was about to meet a violent end. Watching for a break, I held Bella against my side. I knew exactly when she realized what was happening. The woman didn't speak English, but her tone and her tight grip on her rosary got Bella's attention. When the woman begged Dimitri to let her leave, to escape the evil, Bella sucked in a breath through her teeth. I pulled her against my chest, trying to insulate her from the horror of the scene. By the time we had made it out of the chamber, Bella could barely walk. She was shaking so hard. Heidi, the tour guide, met us in the hallway. She eyed Bella.
"A reject? No, she wasn't part of my group."
Then she inspected me.
"He's new. I hadn't heard about an addition to the guard."
She speculated silently until Dimitri greeted her. She looked at me again, hoping for an explanation of my presence, but Dimitri was too anxious to quench his thirst to explain. "Nice fishing," he said, motioning us ahead.
"Thanks. Aren't you coming?"
Her smile was brilliant, and he returned it with a little more than friendly affection. "In a minute. Save a few for me." Bella shook even harder. I hurried her toward the doors that led to the lobby, hoping they were thick enough to muffle the sounds. But I was too late. The cries of the dying began when we were 5 steps from freedom. Another sound joined them. A hum, no, a wail, was breaking free from Bella's lips, growing louder with every step. How many times had I tried to explain what kind of monster I was, that I had participated in the monstrous evil that was happening in the room behind us. Only now did she truly understand. The screaming had started. Could the running be far behind?